Willie D. Live.
I don't want some left-wing socialist telling me how to deal with police issues. I want to talk to real people in the community who are clear about exactly what they want and what they don't want. So I'll give you an example. During the whole Black Lives Matter protests, you had a lot of weird shit going on where you would have, you would be in the hood and there'd be some person that nobody knows coming in and just randomly causing trouble, busting windows, setting shit on fire and all that. That's that radical left. You know what I mean? That's that organized part of it. And what I liked about Detroit was that the people in Detroit, when they were protesting, they identified those people and said, don't come in our neighborhood. We don't want you to make this into something that fits your agenda. We have a beef in an issue, a bone to pick, and we want to address it our way. We don't want outsiders coming to the city who are trying to instigate and destabilize the government, all this other stuff. So that's what people didn't understand, was that there's that higher level agenda that happened, and I don't think it's good for the country.
I want to make an appeal to all of those young people out there who might be thinking about becoming a police officer or who has scratched it off your list of aspirations. Let me tell you something right now. We don't hate we don't hate black police officers. We hate bad black police officers, just like we don't hate white police officers. We hate bad white police officers. So, if you have the right intentions, if you are for justice, if you are for community protection, we need you. We are going to respect you. We already respect those who are out there doing the work. I got people in my family who are cops. These are good guys, the ones that I know. I really don't know any family member that I have that's a cop, that's a bad guy. He's out there, she's out there doing the work. They're out there respecting the community. They're out there running interference when they do see that Klansman who are trying to stretch his authority. They're stepping in saying, no, you can't do that. You're not going to do that. And they're on the scene, and they're the eyes, they're the ears for us. So we need y'all. So if anybody's out there just putting a blanket statement out there that black cops are sellouts, no, you the motherfucking sellout.
There you go.
Because we need y'all. Yeah, man, you ain't finna change nothing from the outside. You got to get in there. Right. And I do think the more black cops that we have, the more appealing it's going to be to do the right thing by our people. Because right now, for some black cops, they take the easy way out by acquiescing to racism. Mm-hmm. You know, they go along to get along. They get in the game and they say, you know what, it's easier for me to just roll with the punches and, you know, be part of the status quo as opposed to coming in and trying to change things. So we have to take away that incentive. If the more we take away the incentive for them to do the wrong thing, then all of those people that come in that's doing the right thing can have a better influence and impact on their decisions that they make when they're out there on the streets.
Yeah. You know, with policing, if you ask me one thing that I observe that I think has to change is I don't think there should be any situation where the people policing the community don't have a stake in that community. You know, that are not from that community, that don't live there or have some connection, because you take better care of things that you own or you're connected to. You know, you don't have no respect. If you're coming from the suburbs and you're coming down to the hood, and the only time you come down to the hood is when something bad's happening, and you ain't got no respect for the things that we hold sacred in our community, then you are going to go in there and cause problems. You
Especially
know what I mean?
When you've been taught that these are bad people.
Right. And
so you go in with that implicit bias.
There you go. And that's when it becomes, in many cases, it becomes a racial occupation, where you got all these white police officers in a black neighborhood. The only reason they're there is because they are police. That's a problem, because you don't see examples where you see a whole gang of black men, you know, in police uniforms raiding houses in white neighborhoods. That does not happen. So that's where it becomes like a military occupation or like a type of oppression, right? So we need police. We need good police that are going to really do their job. I think that community policing definitely has to include that aspect of caring about the people and the places that you go. I'm not going to police people that I have a connection to the same as I would somebody who's a stranger.
Yeah, absolutely. Man, how does a guy who struggles with grades, has poor performance at school, is told by his teachers that he isn't smart enough to go to college, and who they put into a special ed class, become a professor at a college and a millionaire?
The public schools are terrible for black boys. Just terrible, man. I mean, the statistics show this. And not only are public schools terrible for black boys, they're really terrible for America. The public schools were created as indoctrination factories to get you caught up in the whole go to college, go deep in debt, and then spend the rest of your life on the corporate plantation, almost like a sharecropper, working to pay off an impossible debt, right? That whole system is incredibly fucked up, right? But the capitalists that run society, they were like, okay, how do we get people? Most people are trained to be sheep. Studies show that 70 to 80% of all people will follow authority, even if they know the authority's wrong. They'll just go along with the crowd, even if they know the crowd is wrong, right? So most people in America are not trained to be free thinkers. They're trained to be systematic thinkers, and public schools are part of that. That's what think about this. You get rewarded for sitting down and shutting up. That's it. If you just behave and just do what you're told, that's going to get you good grades.
Get an E in conduct.
Right, and that's why most when they study like valedictorians, how many of those valedictorians go off and become millionaires and all that, it's a very low number because they're not trained to do the kind of creative thinking that you have to do to really be really successful in America. To be successful in America at a high level, you got to get outside the fucking box. You have to, like, systems and all of that, man. The systems are designed to benefit the system, right? So, for example, the American economy, a lot of it runs off consumption, spending money, right? So that's why you're trained to be a consumer. You're not trained to be a saver, an investor, and all that. It also runs off of people that are workers. You need workers, right? That was the problem with the pandemic. People actually found out what it's like to live a life where you're not spending all your time at the corporate plantation, and they didn't want to come back to work. And they were like, okay, how do we trap or trick people to come back into work? Well, things like debt and all the financial insecurity that exists is part of that trap, right? So basically, I struggled in the public school system because I just, I think I just I didn't like being told what to do. I did not relate to the teachers. These were like white ladies from the suburbs. I probably had a little ADHD. When I was 5 years old, my mother, who was about 21 at the time, there was a young white lady that told her. She said when we were in class, she said, your son Boyce, he would never sit down. He would get up and stand up, walk around, and just disrupt the class. She said before I would try to kind of scold him about it. She said, but one day I decided I wanted to play a trick on him. So she said, when he got up and he's standing up, walking around, doing whatever, I just ignored him and I kept teaching. She said, I just kept teaching. And she said, when I got done, I was going to embarrass him by asking him to repeat everything I had just taught while he was distracted. And she said, and your son recited every single thing that I put on that board. And so what this lady told my mother, which probably saved my life, and God bless, I don't know who this lady was. She said, when your son gets to public school, they're going to diagnose him with ADHD, and they're going to try to put him on medication. She said, do not believe them. Do not let them put your son on medication. Do not do that. So the whole time I was in school, my mother fought the teachers. And she's like, no, you're not putting him on meds. Ain't nothing wrong with him. My son is smart. My son is fine. And that's what protected me from what happens to so many of our children. I think boys in general, and maybe black boys, I think we're just different. And we don't always fit in those systems, because schools are kind of like prisons on training wheels. Like that school to prison pipeline is very, very real. The systems are very similar. And some of us just don't fit in that system. Maybe school helps some people. Maybe the medication helps some people. It wouldn't have been good for me. And the whole time, man, I just felt disconnected. I didn't feel validated. I did not feel loved. I did not learn until I got older that love is really important. You could give a loving black woman one room and a bunch of books, and she could educate kids better than the damn public school system. In fact, in Chicago, there's 55 schools where they do not have one single child that can read or do math at grade level. 55 schools. You're talking about 100,000 kids or something like that, right? So the love was what was missing, man. I didn't feel like anybody cared about me. And I think when you let a child know you care about them, they're going to show up for you. They're going to want to behave for you. They're going to want to do well for you. I didn't feel love, so it's like, fuck it. I'm just come to school and just do whatever I want. And then it wasn't until I turned 18 and I discovered this thing called sex, and I had a baby at 18. And at that time, I only had 3 choices. My father said, you got to leave in 6 months. So you can either, my 3 options were to go back and work at Taco Bell. I didn't want to be pimped. I didn't want to get told what to do. You could join the military. I didn't want to get shot. and the war was about to start in Iraq. So I went to
Taco Bell.
Yeah, what say?
So you went to Taco Bell?
Nah, man.
You didn't work at Taco Bell?
I did work at Taco Bell,
Yeah.
but when I turned 18, I went to college.
Okay.
And when I got to college, I was out of place. I felt like a fish out of water. I did not feel like I belonged because, I mean, why would I be in college? I couldn't even make good grades in high school. I never made an A in anything. I think I might have made an A in PE or something.
Well, you made an A in sex.
I made an A in sex. Yes,
Yeah.
I did. Yes, I did. She will confirm that, I hope. But anyway, so I get to college, right? I didn't know what I was doing, man. I would see, and the funny thing was I started learning. In hindsight, it's like I was around people that maybe they weren't smart, but they knew how to look smart. They knew how to look the part. They had the backpack with the little glasses and carrying all the books. And I was more like an athlete or whatever. I did sports and stuff, and school wasn't my thing. But I knew I needed to get an education because that's what I had been told my whole life. I was leaning on what my parents had always said to me. I just never listened. And I had this baby, right? So I was like, okay, I know I don't want to be broke. I don't want to get pimped. And I said, okay, I think school is the way for me to get what I need so I can be successful and be able to be there for my child, right? So the problem was I did not know how to study, but that was my best advantage, actually, because I had nothing to base it on. So in my mind, I said, okay, how long should I study every day? And I thought about my job at Taco Bell where I would work 8 or 9 or 10 hours because I was a hustler at the job. I wanted that minimum wage money. You know what I mean? I always had money because I was always working. So I was like, if I can work at Taco Bell on my feet for 10 hours, I can study for 5 hours. Like I thought that was like a half a day, right? And then I learned from sports. See, sports is very valuable in terms of teaching you things like, goal setting, consistency, hard work. You learn all these things from playing sports. So I just applied those same principles to academics, right? So in my mind, I didn't think of like going to the library and studying. In my mind, I was like, I'm going to practice. And I would go to the library every day for 5 hours. Again, scared to death, just thinking I was just barely surviving. I did not know at the time that most college students don't study. They study like 2-3 hours a week, and then they try to cram right before the test. So I was way ahead of everybody, right? And to my surprise, I was the only black student on the University of Kentucky campus that had straight A's. And I had almost a perfect GPA all the way through college. I was the number 1 student. And the whole time I felt like a big fraud. I was like, I'm not smart. You know what I mean? I didn't realize that I might have some intelligence until maybe my senior year or something like that. Then I started thinking, okay, maybe I was lied to my whole life. Maybe those teachers that were telling me who I was were misidentifying me. And then I started thinking about how many other millions of black boys this happens to.